All right, let's talk about the big subject in due diligence, and that is delivery of the termination fee. Now, remember that to terminate, the buyer must do two things within the termination period, the due diligence period, which ends at 6 p.m. on a date certain. If the buyer is late in doing either of these, and time is of the essence, then he will not properly terminate. One is the notice of termination that we've discussed in another video. And now we're going to discuss the termination fee. This seems to be the issue that is causing most consternation for all the agents that I've spoken with. Certainly due diligence period and the due diligence option has been around for a long time, but I've understood from most that they either haven't used it or the termination fee has been zero. Therefore, there wasn't much risk of failing to deliver the termination fee on time. Now, the plain language of the contract says that the termination fee must be delivered to the seller. Okay, that would mean that the fee would go to the seller, not to the seller's agent. Now, I understand there are people who vehemently disagree with me on this point, but if I read the contract itself, it says seller. It doesn't say to the broker, and it doesn't have the language that we see in paragraph 29 that says that notice to or from a broker is notice to or from a party. Therefore, I think it's incumbent, if the fee is going to be delivered to the seller, for there to be language added to the contract that says delivery to the seller's agent, or to the broker would be what it would say, to the broker, to track the other language, is delivery to the seller. Again, people disagree with me, but I was, as a CPA, was a tax accountant, and everything has to be exact for me. So there you go. Now, the problem we have is that there's really not a place in the contract to detail how this is going to be done. And as we know, one principle of the contract is that all terms and conditions of the contract must be in the contract. Therefore, am not of the opinion that this is something that can be left to work out between the parties later. I think it needs to be specified very clearly, the termination fee, who's going to pay it, to whom, where, when, how, why, etc. We know why. Why is because if it's paid late, our buyer would be then purchasing the property as is if they fail to terminate under paragraph 8. Remembering always they can terminate under the financing, the appraisal, or the termite contingency. So first is who's going to deliver this fee? Well, the common wisdom out there is that the buyer's agent will not be able to handle this part of the transaction for their client. And that can be a real issue. There are various reasons of why the buyer's agent would not do it, but just suffice it to say that most brokerages are saying that the buyer's agent will not participate in delivering this fee. Therefore, that means the buyer has to deliver the fee to the seller, or if you buy the other interpretation, the seller's agent, but it has to be delivered. It can be in person or it can be electronically. Now, this obviously presents a problem if the buyer is not local. Okay. Now we have delivery to either the sellers or the seller's agent. And I've talked about the interpretation that I feel there must be added, that delivery to the seller's agent or delivery to the broker is deemed delivery to the seller. Okay. The other person that could receive the termination fee is the escrow agent. So it goes to the escrow agent, is considered delivered when it gets to the escrow agent, and then the seller can retrieve it from the escrow agent, either in person or check or wire or however they decide, but the delivery would be at that time. Okay. Where are you going to deliver it? Well, again, conventional wisdom is you would deliver it to the seller's agent at the seller's office. A problem with that has arisen, and as I've taught this various parts, is that sometimes the seller does not have an office in locally. Their offices are either in another state or they're virtual offices, or there's an out of county or even out of, we're not necessarily out of state, but an out of county broker who's handled the transaction, and it would require the buyer to drive for an hour and a half, whatever needs to be done. So the other issue that maybe possibly wasn't anticipated when it says we'll just deliver it to the selling agent is that I know of at least one brokerage where the brokerage says the selling agent is not going to handle this fee, which leaves it between the buyer and the seller. It obviously can be delivered to some agreed upon place. It could be deposited in the bank of the seller. They said, well, the seller doesn't like to give out his banking information. I find that to be a little unusual because every time I write a check, you have my banking information. It has the wiring number and the account number right there for you to see. So that could facilitate a wire. There could be overnight delivery. But we have to come up with these questions. Who's going to deliver it to whom, where, how is it going to be delivered? The problem with some methods of delivery, such as overnight delivery, is that what if UPS loses it? Or what if UPS is delayed in delivering? I tell the story, we have a UPS box close to my office, and we had some suspicions that possibly the driver was coming early because some packages were delayed. Well, that was indeed the case, we found out after a while, and we had a particular package that was very crucial that it get there. So we did not wait until the last minute. In fact, we had it into the drop box about 2 hours before the final pickup, and it was not picked up on time. Well, time is of the essence in this contract. So if that delivery is not complete, there would be a problem. It could be the same thing, a wire, however it is to be delivered. If it's not an instantaneous delivery, then there would be a problem. Another thing about the termination fee that could present a problem is collectability. Remember, this termination fee is paid when the buyer determines they're not going through with the contract. So at that point, the buyer is severing all dealings with the seller. So maybe the buyer chooses not to pay it, or maybe they just say, I'm collectability. There's a bounce a check. Hopefully that wouldn't happen. Hopefully they just may refuse to pay it. And if the buyer is truly in California or somewhere out of town, what are the seller's options? Certainly the seller could sue for breach of contract, but I'm not sure that that would be something that they would want to get involved in. So there are issues of collectability. These are all the things that come up around, not all, but at least the ones I've thought of that come up around the termination fee and delivery. Again, I believe very strongly that our license law and our ethics and just having a contract in general requires that all terms and conditions be in the contract. Therefore, I think who is going to deliver this fee, to whom, how, and when delivery is complete must be specified in the contract. Now, I understand that some people think whatever the delivery address is on the contract is where the fee would have to be. The buyer, in this case, would have to deliver the fee to the delivery address. Well, that can present a problem because many times that delivery address is, or most of the time, that delivery address is going to be the broker's address. And if the fee is not to be delivered to the broker, then that would not be the place for it to go. There are complications when the buyer's not local, when the seller's not local, when the seller's agency is not local. All types of issues arise in this. I've spent considerable time thinking about what I would do. And I came up with what I believe is the best solution for this to balance all of the different issues. And I will address some of those issues in another video, because I was hoping each of these videos wouldn't be too long, so you wouldn't have to suffer through too long to get some of your questions answered. So that will be forthcoming in another video.